And we are live for this episode. It's the 23rd episode of Everything Teams Phone Live with the garbage truck and everything in the background. Everything Teams Phone Live, the 23rd episode here on June 30th. I'm excited to announce who is with us. We've been bragging about this episode all month long. We're excited to learn more about MTRs, about devices. For those of you who tune in on a weekly basis, it's pretty exciting to hear about the newest and the latest and greatest equipment and MTR stuff. And right now, we don't cover it very often. So right now, we're excited because we've got one of the foremost experts in this space in Ryan Herbst from unifiedcommunications.com. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Not sure I'll take the foremost expert crown, but yeah, we definitely put a lot of effort into keeping up, in this side of the Teams ecosystem. And yeah, Brandon, Rick, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
Absolutely, absolutely. Brandon, how are you today, buddy?
I'm kind of feeling like fear of missing out a little bit because I'm looking at Ryan's background, and I know you know this, Rick. I've got the G12 Teams Phone Live background sitting down in my garage. I feel like I should have had it set up for this one now because we've got unified communications, but I don't have my backdrop.
You know, this is all natural. It's like we go all natural here, Brandon. Is what we what we do, right?
Right. You got you got the debris over my shoulder, a dog over my shoulder, a house plant.
Yeah. I often have a studio. I have a home studio like that would match you all a little better, but I'm actually in the office today, which is fun as we all live out this hybrid world. Yeah.
There you go. So that is where the differentiator comes in, because G12 Communications has been, since its inception in 2011, a remote company. I'll tell you what's interesting is having Teams has been such a game changer from a businessman. I can't even imagine how businesses ran before without Teams, because I think back to, let's just say 2014, 2015. And I remember getting on conference calls, audio conference calls, right? So you're always on speakerphone, audio conference calls, and you have no clue who's at their desk, who's working, who's not working. You know, it was such a, I think when this whole pandemic started, leaders of companies were concerned about productivity from their employees and things like that. Without the tools like Teams, I think that's a valid concern. But now that you've got Teams and the like, Zoom and Cisco and, all the collaboration tools, I don't think that's as much a worry anymore. I don't think it should be as much as a concern anymore, because you can, identify when someone's working, not working, when they are, sort of at their desk doing what they should be doing, as an example, if they have a desk job, right? So it just has made things so much easier for a remote organization. So
it's interesting. Right. I would say that I guess the remote only model, the hybrid model, the office first model, I guess all of these, in theory can work. We're spending a lot of time these days, as most organizations are kind of data-wise, kind of the majority of them kind of fitting into some sort of a hybrid. I think we've definitely recognized that a hybrid can be a great model, and in theory, it could. We would argue could be almost superior, or could be superior. But I think whether it's remote only or hybrid, part of what we're recognizing is the tech is important, and I know we're going to talk about some of that tech today. The workspace itself is important. But leadership and culture are probably at the top of the list around, what it takes. To your point, Rick, I think it's, if people are being measured based on outcomes and objectives and timelines, there should be no question about whether they're productive or not. There's this whole debate over whether people are productive in the office, and we know that we are outside of the office. We know that folks who were probably playing around at home were playing around in the office before they went home. It's all about that. But I think there is some work. We've got the core technology, to the fabric, to kind of bring all of this together with Teams. But it does take, I think, leaders recognizing that leading a remote team is different, and trying to do some things to ensure that the right activities take place in the right places, and that we can measure everyone, that we're all kind of marching to the same beat, is a different animal. It was a little too easy in the past to kind of just look out and say, Rick's a great employee because he gets here at 7 and he leaves at 7, and that's all I'm measuring. Far too many organizations, unfortunately, still trying to do that, and that definitely doesn't work in the remote and hybrid world.
Yep. Yeah. No, absolutely. Oh, go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, from my perspective, I've come from a all-in office environment to hybrid to now full remote, and I think over the last 5-6 years, I think my experience has been that the tech is equally important no matter where you sit. The last 5 years of my life prior to G12 was, I was kind of a hybrid, but very close to the headquarters of the office. So I found myself in the office quite a bit. And what I found was I was using the technology just as heavily, if not more so, in the office than I was at home. And, as far as culture goes, like that culture starts to, the barrier between in office and remote, kind of that barrier starts to fall, because at least what I found is when you're sitting on the same technology stack, you're creating, a new kind of culture within the organization, because I'm now interacting as much with my remote person, whether it's an employee coworker, as I would be in the office. I mean, I found I'd sit in the office and rarely would I actually interact with people, even in the office face to face. It was, they're upstairs or downstairs, and I'm on a Teams meeting with them, and I'm in the same building as them.
It's funny. I've often thought, if I'm not in a place where I'm a part of this organization, I'm not going anywhere. But if I was in the job market and I got an offer to go, and I show up the first day, and I walk in and there's just a phone on the desk, and I don't have Teams or a tool like that, I think I'd just get up and leave. I mean, I don't think there's any way that I could, the level of productivity and the type of engagement and collaboration that are part of my work style would be impossible without these tools. So we're all fortunate that we've got a service like Teams to support this modern way of working.
Isn't that the case these days, though, where employees now look at hybrid as almost maybe not full remote, but at least hybrid as a requirement, as part of what they're looking for, right? I mean, if you had a job like ours, it would be difficult even, for me to conceive, hey, let me drive into the office every single day now and get there at 8 o'clock and leave there at 5 or 6 or whatever it is, and be in traffic for an hour, if you're in a big city, and so that's it. To me, it seems like that's just not even an option anymore. Again, if you have the option and you are in a knowledge worker sort of environment, I don't find those employers attractive at all. So it's but on the flip side, though, full remote has had its challenges as well, right? Because now that let's say I hadn't been to shows in a long time, and I finally broke out to some shows, and Ryan, you and I met at in Denver, and now I find myself craving, the interaction with people, right? I find myself craving, I'd like to. If it's not a trade show, then maybe I'm coming out to an office to go visit someone, right, at their office if they've got an office, right? So I do find myself now having done more interaction the last year and a half than I ever have in the past, or than I had in the past 10 years or 8 years. I'm looking for more of that. So I can see the hybrid being just right from an organization perspective, like making sure that you have that.
Yeah, I think there's all these benefits, certainly in a full remote world, I think where we see it shaping up is there's a lot of hybrid. There's certain positions even within those hybrid organizations that are full remote. But the folks that seem to be doing it well and really getting full value out of it, are doing a little less one size fits all. They're looking at this more from a role and team level. And there's certain activities that really flourish if we sit in a room together. We're brainstorming or training somebody, trying to solve a big complex problem, kicking off a project. There's certain things that if we have the opportunity to be together in person, knowing that probably some of that group's still going to be remote, so we need all the right tech to make that happen. There's some magic that can naturally happen. Then there's other things that in more focused, individualized work that probably take place in most instances better outside of the office. And so trying to align that work is one of the challenges for a hybrid manager, right? Just making sure that if we are going to do that, if we're going to bring some folks in, we're not doing it in this like super overly simplistic way. You know, everybody comes on Tuesday and Wednesday, and they have essentially the same day that they have remote on Monday, Thursday, and Friday. And so you got to architect that you know, when I come into the office, it is those particular activities that where that magic happens. That should be the majority of my day in the times that we do come together. And so that's one of the big mistakes that we see folks making, is just this, or the worst thing that they're doing is trying to say, just, you know, come when you want. Because if I come to the office, I'm there, to your point, Rick, I want to see my teammates, I want to collaborate, I want to get some of that magic. And if I make that whole commute and get there and I'm the only one there, yeah, I'm pretty frustrated and unlikely to do it again next week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, that's a great sort of segue into what we had planned for the discussion, you know, the hybrid trends. We just kind of sort of dove right into hybrid trends. I do want to take a moment, Ryan, to have you kind of introduce unified communications and kind of give us the 30,000-foot view of what you guys do, where you come from, those sorts of things, and what you guys are specializing in today.
Well, thanks. Yeah, so unified communications have been around since the 80s, and you know, we're fairly unique. I would say you know, we wear a couple of different hats, but we maintain, you know, very deep kind of subject matter expertise around teams. We work with lots of large organizations and some you know, mid-market organizations on, you know, their strategy on how they lean in and embrace kind of modern ways of work. And so we've got a incubation and consulting kind of engine. We have a what would be kind of a traditional AV integration kind of practice that helps with kind of the rooms and that side of the story. And then we're equally focused on things like personal devices, things like the headset that I'm wearing, or cameras, or the type of gear that would sit either at home or at a hot desk to make sure that people can, you know, see and hear. That is our world, and we do it on somewhat of a global stage. So we've got operations in the U.S. as well as Canada and EU and UK, and so but it is, yeah, it's all about modern work and collaboration, both in terms of hardware and the consulting services to help kind of drive those types of experiences.
Am I allowed to say what you power, like the store that I think everyone knows that you power? Am I allowed to say that?
You can say it. Yeah, I would say that it's not probably our primary focus today, but yes, yeah, we are involved in the fulfillment of devices for Microsoft on with the Teams device store.
That's really cool. I mean, if any of you have gone to the Microsoft website and looked for devices and said, okay, here's the Teams certified devices, and you go click and add a couple of things to your cart, it says powered by Unified Communications.
Yeah, so we're a fulfillment partner for Microsoft in that context.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Okay, very good. Well, let's do this. I'm going to share the slides that we have, and we're going to talk a little bit more about devices and how the importance of a device strategy can be to your sort of transition into Microsoft Teams. And so let me throw this slide up for us. We can all see and follow along, and we'll just kind of get started on that discussion, because it is really what we're here for. Here we go. The importance of device strategy. You know, all the devices, there's so many devices coming out these days. Like, you know, I love following people on LinkedIn that work for different hardware organizations. I saw a note from Tom Arbuthnot yesterday on a Cisco device that's coming out. I always see Neat out there, and Neat panels are just, I mean, they're neat. Like they're really neat. I'm loving the idea of those, and I've not had the opportunity to put my hands on one. But the headsets and the room devices, Ryan, the room devices are starting for us as a telecom organization that does Teams Operator Connect service. You know, our primary focus is, hey, let's deploy Teams Phone. But more and more, Brandon, wouldn't you say that we are getting asked, hey, I've got, 10 conference rooms. What do you guys do for those? You know, we've got this many conference rooms. What do you guys do with those? And so more and more, we are seeing the trickle, I'm going to call it a trickle down effect, because you've got the global organizations who know that the meeting rooms are a big primary focus in an organization. And then I'm going to say the trickle down effect is to that medium enterprise and the small enterprise we work, quite frankly, with a lot. Those organizations now are going, hey, we want to address the rooms also, or can you address the rooms? Or sometimes it's the first foray into, we're thinking about Teams Phone. How do we get our room set up for Microsoft Teams? So, well, Ryan, talk to us about that.
Yeah, so devices are just super, super important to the success of hybrid and to overall experience collaborating with teams. I think we know that, and so whether I guess from a room perspective, we're super fortunate to have this large growing ecosystem of device manufacturers that run the whole gamut in terms of cost and size spectrum. We've got from the smallest of little spaces that you may want to jump in and have a private one-on-one when you come into the office that day with somebody remote, to the type of equipment that could support a large boardroom with a whole bunch of cameras, trying to create in a more engaging experience for a remote board member. It's also as much about the experience of the folks in the room these days, because I think a lot of the feedback that we heard early on, was, we all got used to this remote experience where, we're sitting fairly close to a camera and we can all see and hear, and it feels very equitable. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting in a conference room with a big zoomed out view, and look at, and I also I'm not participating in the chat or a lot of the other elements of the meeting that are taking place with folks that are on the remote side. And so it's equally important, I think, as we try to think about rooms from a team's perspective and engagement. The experience of those sitting in the room, the experience of those remote, they hold equal importance. And between the kind of diversity of the hardware ecosystem, the sophistication of the team service, and the sophistication in AI that is both in the service and sitting at a lot of these devices at the edge, we're able to do some things we could have never dreamed of pre-COVID, and that being a really engaging experience. I walk in, the technology just kind of gets out of the way. I have a Teams experience, but I have a Teams experience that is specifically designed for that room. It's familiar, like the desktop or mobile experience, but it's also different because it recognizes the fact that there may be a couple of displays in the room, and we want it to know how to manage them, and there's different layouts that are designed to be more conducive. What I'm seeing, the front row, for example, which is one of the layout options for Teams rooms, it really puts me on eye level with a group of remote folks, and I can create very engaging experiences, and the right physics where I'm looking at them, they're looking at me, and so super exciting kind of moment for rooms. And also from a price perspective, I think that the cost of this technology is now it's fraction of what it was in the early days, and so there's a lot that organizations can do without tons of investment to ensure that they're equipping rooms to provide a very, very engaging, easy experience.
How far we've come from, I'll use this, like this as an example. It's like the remote control as an example. You're like, overhead, you walk into a conference room and you're trying to get the overhead projector to work, right? And then you're like, where's the HDMI cable and where's whatever it may be. How far we've come, it seems like, in such a short time from that experience. And I would venture to say, though, Ryan, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but is it like 50% of the conference rooms out there are still like that? They still got this massive projector sitting overhead and, or one on the table. Do you think is the penetration of the more advanced meeting room tools, how much penetration do you think that the new tools?
Yeah, no, I think you are right that the majority of rooms still don't have the technology that is needed, and so there's a huge opportunity, I think, for organizations. Part of what a lot of organizations are doing these days is as they're finalizing their hybrid strategies, they're not necessarily doing it all in one swoop, but they're doing it in a little more measured way and looking at data and utilization and and equipping rooms in phases. But I think we're probably at a moment that, yeah, if you walk into a room and I've got a HDMI cable and a display, and I've got a conference phone on the table that I got to dial into, I think we know that's just a horrible. I'm much better off at home than trying to an experience like that. So I think any organization that wants to make hybrid part of it, yeah, you've got to make, you've got you need a strategy that includes rooms as well as personal, and how we think about hot desk, like all that, those three legs of that stool all have to work if we have any chance of keeping folks in our hybrid office.
And I think one thing I saw at a very large company I used to work for, which is, I don't know that a lot of people even think about this, and I'm sure, Ryan, you have these conversations all the time, is we had mobile rooms, right? Full room kit set up on wheels that you could literally, you'd schedule it just like you'd schedule a conference room, but maybe what you're doing is you're scheduling one of those rooms that's not permanently equipped for a room unified experience, and so you would just take that kit on wheels to whatever room, and oftentimes you'd even see, like, I'd walk around the office and you'd see people would be huddled in a cubicle with a room kit talking to their teams, and so that also opens up, because the cost has come down, that opens up a ton of flexibility and options for companies who go, well, maybe I don't want to invest in 15 rooms, maybe I just need maybe 5 kits that are mobile.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, on one side, we certainly have devices. We have devices like Surface Hub that can have a battery, and you can unplug them naturally and move them from one room to another. And then we've got all kinds of Android and increasingly some on the Windows side as well that are kind of integrated all in one. It's a board. It runs Teams, rooms. So that exists, and there's certainly the possibility of either making that mobile. Some cases we use those devices just because they're super easy to deploy. Like, you don't need really a lot of integration. You pull that thing out of a box, you put it on a stand, and sometimes that's the right approach versus trying to, the complexity of having to think about mounting things on walls and running cables under the floor, that kind of thing. But I will say, the cost has become so low that sometimes it just, we don't have to share the equipment as much, because if we're talking about, there's Android bar and touch panels that could be easily sub 3,000, sub 2,000, getting kind of pushing down into the $1,500 to $1,000 world, which we see all of that coming. That creates an opportunity where at that price point, you don't have to worry about all of the logistics of managing something mobile.
How cool is that? And there's a big bold comment that you have down here. You got this new DIY Teams room kits, and you've got a slide, and I've got it's further down in our deck here. But boy, this whole the equipment that's out there that you guys have access to is super exciting. I want to get to this whole configurator thing, because I'm going to put you on the spot, Ryan. And this configurator tool that you said you could demo for us, I'm super interested in having you do a quick demo for the room configurator. Are you still prepared to show that?
I can totally do a demo. Yeah, let me kind of tee up this concept of the DIY side. And so I think we know that we're in the integration business. Our teams show up and install things physically on site for customers. We don't expect the world to change where that's no longer a thing. I think what we are saying is that, particularly in the smaller side of the portfolio, where we're talking about small rooms, there's a lot of spaces out there that may be a focus. We'll call this focus space, or a huddle space, or a small space. And even I would say some of these kits go bigger into what would be a traditional small, medium, even maybe the small side of large, where the physical install is becoming a lot less of the hurdle. So it used to take a lot of specialized expertise to go tune the room, and acoustical engineers, and these days it's largely a room in a box. And if you can hang a display, if you can, in a lot of instances, it's a bar that sits on top of a display, and it just plugs into network and power and HDMI, and there's a touch panel that sits on the table that's PoE powered, or there's not a lot there. So the complexity from a physical install is diminishing in a big way. And so often what customers need help with is the technical readiness, and the environmental planning, and the adoption and change management, and the training. That physical side is just becoming, I'd say it's somewhat of a barrier, the labor costs, the installation costs, particularly as you get into those smaller spaces. And so, yeah, we're seeing, we put together the idea of these bundles for customers that that have an interest in trying to not just take some hardware, because I think we know just throwing hardware is not the right thing to do. They do need support, but the idea is for essentially the price of just the hardware, you get the hardware, you get some very detailed instructions, and you get some support services from us to kind of guide you remotely through that first deployment, so that you're able to do it. And by DIY, I think it's not necessarily always just the customer themselves doing it. This could be their low voltage cabling folks. It could be their facility. It could be other resources that they have access to that may already be in their facilities or kind of home to their buildings, where the cost could just be a lot lower. And again, kind of skill set that can that can pull a cable or hang a display is more of what we need. And so we see this opening up this whole world where if I could put a Teams room device, if I could put a device that gives that simple click to join experience, that has that engaging experience, if we could get analytics and insights out of that room versus that just being a BYOD room with a HDMI cable, for around the same price, it's a huge win. So we're really excited about this idea, and hopefully over time, we're doing more and more of this. Whether we're installing it, customers installing it, it's simple, and that more complex integration work is happening more in our specialty spaces, divisible spaces, executive spaces.
Let's talk for just a second, Ryan. Why don't you break down for us what does support look like? So, I mean, that's a huge component where you kind of blew past that, but really, if you get a piece of equipment in that you're not familiar with, and you need some kind of a step-by-step guide, and maybe I'm not one for instructions, but I get this piece of equipment in, and I'm interested in kind of setting this up, and how do I get started? What does support look like? What does that install support look like for you guys? I mean, that's just a bundling in, some support to get things started is so critical, particularly for this DIY stuff. So what does that look like?
Yeah, so in these packages, there's a handful of things that we're doing to try to help ensure that customers can just hit the ground running. So there is some included both schematics and elevation guides to help. So if you sit down, you understand how everything connects. How does this physical install actually work? There is deployment guides both for the specific kit itself, as well as for Teams from a Microsoft perspective that we provide. There's adoption and change management materials, things like quick reference guides that you can use you could link to through a QR code or otherwise, but that are important to make sure people know how to use it. And then we're including some support time from our team, that if somebody's in the room deploying this, they're not sure how something connects, or it could be more on the environmental side, that they've set everything up physically, but it's their first room. They're not 100% sure how to create the accounts or do the environmental side with 365. We can help them with that as well. And so once you do it, it becomes really rinse and repeat afterward. But you're right, it's 100%. It's very, very important that that we're not just sending out hardware, that we're providing a comprehensive array of services to ensure that that you can get support when you need it. But I think again, we're also talking about a much less complex physical install, and we see most of the support these days being more on account creation, or what license do I use, or just some of the questions that you have when you're new to this.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. That's a huge value add. I just wanted to bring a little attention to that because it's a huge value add when you ship something off to an organization. They get a piece of hardware. Maybe they ordered it on Amazon. Let's just say you get a piece of hardware and you're not quite sure how to connect it, where to place it. I mean, there's a lot of variables that go into that, making it a good experience. And so having some an advisor and having some additional information attached to the device, and then having the ability to make a phone call or open a ticket and get that sort of step-by-step personal guide and assistance. That's fantastic. What a great value add. So that's cool.
Yeah, and you're seeing, I guess, these bundles, multiple device manufacturers. So there are bundles that we have launched with Logitech and with Poly and with Yealink and with Neat and with Jabra, Lenovo. And so I think there's and some of these are Android, some of these are Windows. We know folks are in a lot of instances doing both. Others feel really passionate on one or the other, and so there's opportunities there within these DIY bundles to ensure you pick the operating system that you want as well.
Now, I'm sure you're unbiased, all right, Ryan, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What are some of your favorite devices? Let's just say, looking at these DIY bundles, what are what's a couple of your favorite devices here out of this bundle package here?
Well, I will tell you that, and it's not just the kind of generic, we love all our children answer, but each of these, we really believe this, that each of these manufacturers do some things uniquely well. There's just not, and that's one of the, it can feel daunting at times to say this, this team's ecosystem of hardware has so many different manufacturers and so many different options. We see it as a huge advantage, so particularly when you can, when customers get aligned with folks like us that can help them kind of navigate through and identify the products that are going to make the most sense. But I would tell you, all of the products that are here have been kind of hand curated because of something we think is really unique. I mean, and it's often around the camera AI, so we want to make sure that that the cameras themselves that are attached to any of these devices, have both the capability to do some sophisticated things. They can see people. They can, they can focus in on a speaker, or they could create more of a grid view. But they're also devices and manufacturers that are working tightly with Microsoft to integrate that technology, so that eventually that device can send multiple streams of content to teams. Those participants in those rooms could appear in their own window inside a Teams meeting versus just doing some fun stuff in the window of the room itself, if that makes sense. And so, and not a particular one that I would say is the best one or better, but depending on the size of the room, the layout of the room, whether you're trying to do front row in that room, or we want a real wide angle camera, or so there's decisions that could drive us in any of these directions, but all of these would be great choices.
That's a perfect segue into the configurator tool. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah. So let me pull up a configurator demo. And so what I'm going to show, let's see, 1 second.
Brandon, what do you have for favorites while he's working on that? What do you any particular devices that you find pretty interesting?
Sorry, I may need. Do I have the rights to share a screen? It looks like I do. Sorry.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, I do. I do see it. All right.
Yeah, and I can't say I've used enough Teams room devices to say I have a favorite. I think from a manufacturer perspective, I definitely have preferences, but that opens up a whole can of worms that I don't think we want to talk about.
Yeah.
At least not on this call.
We can skip over that, but
here we go. So you guys are should be seeing my share. Yeah. So this particular example, we are showing Microsoft's internal standards for rooms. So this tool could show other things. It can show generic standards. It could be customized for a particular customer to show their own standards. So I think as you watch it, it's less about the specific kit that you're looking at in this example, more about this technology where, based on size and capacity, we can help make some decisions around, what rooms. And if you're an organization, we can help you pick, just for a handful of rooms. If you're a large organization, you have your own internal standards. This could be customized for you, where maybe you want to tightly control the brand and some of the components, but you might want to give, let's say, a particular site, based on their budget, some discretion to decide, maybe the size of their displays, or if they want to do single display or dual display, things like that could, but you could still adhere to the overall standard. So here you're seeing, this is sizing to kind of understand, based on, again, capacity and size, what space are we talking about? So we're going to call this one a medium. Again, this is based on the way Microsoft thinks about sizing guidelines. And from here, it becomes much more about the experience. Or is this Are we open to changing furniture? Do we want to do something like you see that device on the left? This is a signature room concept from Microsoft where we're gonna go all in. We're gonna change the orientation of that room to face the long wall versus kind of the traditional way that we would put a rectangular table. And we're gonna mitigate physics, and we're gonna use some wide angle cameras and some AI to create an experience that the three of us, if we were in the office together and we're going to talk to a potential prospect on the G12 side and they're all remote, we wanted a room that was really set up for across the table remote engagement. We might want to do a room like this. That might be a small percentage of our rooms. The majority of them could be more of a traditional layout. We're not planning to replace furniture in those rooms, but we really want some great technology that's going to allow us to have a compelling experience with remote participants. Yeah, or this kind of flex concept where we want something, I think to your point, Brandon, something mobile we can kind of pull in. This doesn't have to be inside a traditional conference room. This could be out in an open area, or it could be a space that we've really identified, and we want to try to create more of a stand-up collaborative ideation session versus a traditional sit-down conference. And so we go in different directions based on the experience we want. So as you think about a portfolio for an organization, because I think the idea often is trying to create some standards from a portfolio perspective, you could have, for the same size of space, a couple of different configurations based on the experience that you're driving toward. In this instance, let's pick a signature room, one of these really hybrid optimized experiences. And so there's some options. Microsoft has shared some reference designs for this type of space. They do it with a ultra short throw projector that sits on the floor, but you also could do it with a wide angle 21:9 display. And so, or maybe somebody already has a display and so they don't need one. In this instance, let's pick this Jupiter 105-inch 21:9 display. And by the way, 21:9 is a huge concept these days. It's a different aspect ratio than what traditionally we see in a conference room. We see 16:9, but what it creates is this really wide canvas. And with front row, that allows some additional panes to be there. So a chat pane that you can see when you're sitting in the room, or a pane to raise hands, or there's loop components that are coming into that. And so there's a lot more around agenda in the meeting and the experience that people are seeing outside of it that you can do with that extra wingspan with one of these 21:9 displays. And the same thing, you can do that with a projectors using the 21:9 as well.
Real quick, just a quick question, Ryan. I didn't mean to slow you down here. What does something like that cost, right? Just rough numbers for something like this, this widescreen.
For the display itself, I think you're seeing these displays in kind of the list price, kind of $12,000 to $15,000 range for 105-inch 21:9 display, as kind of the round numbers, or the budget numbers.
Still so cheap, compared to old school systems, right? Wow.
Yeah, these are big displays, and there's smaller versions. There's some manufacturers that are making 21:9 aspect ratio devices that could be more in the 80 to 90-inch size, and those can be even less expensive.
Wow. Okay, sorry.
You'll see that actually in a second. And so then we could decide, let's say I want to attach a 50-inch Surface Hub. I want that in the side of this room because I want this kind of ideation canvas as well that is part of the meeting, so that somebody could walk up and start Microsoft Whiteboard, and so we have both the sit-down experience, but we have the ability to have this companion collaborative device in the room. I may want a scheduling panel outside of the room, so I could select one. And here there's an opportunity for somebody to share with us if there's something very specifically, other than my inability to type, that you're looking for in this room, and you want our team to kind of be aware. So I just wrote engagement. Still looks like I can't spell. So this now brings us to again, these are Microsoft's reference designs, but you'll see there's certain things that are included, like there's a Logitech core kit. This is the touch panel that sits on the table. This is a Windows-based Teams room. And so you can't change that. Like you could imagine, that's part of the standard. Although there's lots of other device manufacturers that could be used here in addition to Logitech. This is just, again, one specific design example. But there's things that we could fine tune here. So we could pick a particular table mount or an extended warranty. Again, certain things are fixed, like the camera. In this case, Jabra's Panicast 50, which is a really exciting AI-powered device that can do a really wide field of view up to 180 degrees, so it can work really well in this front row concept. Here's the Surface Hub that we decided that we wanted. We could decide that that I want to add a mobile stand to that, that I want to add a battery if I wanted to, or I could say that I'm going to add that kind of later. Same thing, and you'll see that when we get down to the display, for example. We're showing it's more than just the hardware itself. It's the display, but there's mounts and cables and accessories for the mounts and other pieces of this that are important. So we're trying to build kits that include everything that you would need, down to zip ties, surge protector, down to that level, so that you're not running to the store to find all kinds of other items that you need. And then you'll see all kinds of other items here and accessories, including I could add a whiteboard camera if I had a traditional analog whiteboard that I wanted to make available for remote folks to see. And once I do this, I could save this design. And so we're going to call this Rick's favorite room medium V1.
Love it.
From there, we go more into a place that we can now manage. We can create projects, we can create locations, we can associate with specific rooms these different designs, and we can buy them. And so there's a whole management element here of trying to manage the standard, associate the standard with specific projects and rooms. And an ability to transact. And so, yeah, that's, I would say, abbreviated demo of essentially what we're trying to do with Meeting Room Configurator. Hopefully get a good sense of that.
That is awesome. Like, that is awesome. It's like you understand how I work and you built it for me, because let me just tell you, there's normally 5 trips to Home Depot. If there's any kind of project, right? There's like 5 trips to Home Depot, right there, or there's 3 trips to, we had a Fry's before. It's like if you're going off to Fry's to buy some computer pieces, right? So there's like 3 trips there. So this is fantastic that you're down to the zip ties. You're bundling everything that you could possibly need together and putting it into a way to, to transact on all those components, so that you've got a full kit. That's really, really cool. Well done on that. And did you guys build the tool? Is that your tool?
That is Ryan? Our tool. So yeah, I think that the back end kind of logic and what we're trying to do is really exciting. We have a similar tool for personal devices, things like headsets and webcams, and a lot of organizations use that. I think one of the really important lessons that we've learned is just how important having a personal device strategy is, not just the shared device and room side. And that far too many of us still sit on calls where people aren't on video, and we know that's you really want to destroy a all remote environment or make your hybrid put a lot of headwind on your hybrid. Don't turn your camera on, because we know that's super inefficient. But the device is really important, and we think it's not one size fits all. We need to give people some ability, if they've got some unique background noise, that have a noise canceling headset, or if they've got a preference for something that goes all the way over the ear or behind the head. It's delivering choice, particularly for a larger organization, is really hard. And so the idea with the Help Me Choose tools is you define the standards as an organization, and then the tools that are accessed often through integrations with an ITSM platform. It could be through ServiceNow initiated or otherwise, that essentially would send you a link, Rick, and it would help you figure out which company approved device is going to give you the best experience. And based on single sign-on, it could show executive something different. That it also has a cost control elements, but it's really designed to help manage choice and make sure that we can provide devices that are going to provide the right experience, and they're going to get people excited. If they're hybrid, portability is important. There may be a different, based on your profile and how you work, it's just buying cheap corded USB headsets and sending them out to everybody and telling them to use their built-in webcam on their laptop is doesn't go far enough.
No, no. In fact, it's funny because just recently, and it was shocking to me, but just recently I had a question, was asked by a prospective customer. We're fine. We're fine. We'll just use our laptops for audio. We don't need, we don't need a headset or anything like that. And I thought to myself, I'm like, wow, we have one person that for a while did not use a headset. And I think everyone, at some point in a meeting said, hey, listen, you've got to start wearing a headset because you got echoes off the walls. You've got,
nothing's canceling background noise. Like, it might be okay for you, but it's horrible for us.
Exactly.
And empirically, we can kind of prove that doesn't work. I mean, you go look on the Teams admin side and look at the quality of some of those calls, and they've got no noise canceling ability. They're designed by default not to cancel background noise, and so it's super important. And even just from cheap headset to decent headset, it's really important that there's some real value of a Teams certified headset, having a Teams button. The things that it can do these days to help me join a meeting or help me check a voicemail and get focus back to the Teams client if I'm doing something else. There's real value, in addition to the idea that these devices were tested in a really significant. It's the certification process. You can ask any of the device manufacturers that go through it. Is grueling with Microsoft. It's not cursory. It's not just paying for a little logo. There's a lot of tuning to make sure that the audio and the experience is in sync and optimized for the service. That really makes it worthwhile. So I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and I don't think companies realize not only the productivity gains from quality and experience, but also, I'll call it brand recognition from that quality experience. So like I get on with, and I'm not going to name anyone, but I get on with vendors, and there's certain vendors that I see a meeting maker come through and I just cringe because I know my experience in that meeting is going to be miserable because it's not Teams, it's Cisco, and the noise engineering that Cisco has doesn't even compare to the quality that Microsoft has built right into the Teams experience. And this isn't me bashing on Cisco. This is just me speaking from my experience. And then on top of that, joining where these people are talking into their microphones, and it feels like I'm getting, for the audio files out there, G729 audio quality compression, where it's not good quality to begin with. And then on top of that, there's, could be kids screaming in the background, could be dogs barking in the background. And it's just, like I see the vendor and I just go, ugh, I really don't want to deal with you. And that's not just a poor experience. It's also, that brand recognition is somewhat tarnished, at least in my mind, because I don't even want to deal with a vendor who's not willing to, they want to sell me their product because it's the best, but then they don't want to put forth that effort to present their best. So I think a little goes a long ways when you're investing in whether it's headsets or Teams Room.
Are you sure you weren't just talking about when I turned my noise suppression off and I tried to play the guitar for you, Brandon? Are you sure you're not just talking about that?
No, like you actually struggle to play the guitar because I'm like, nope, still canceled, can't hear you.
That's hilarious. All right, so Ryan, you're fresh off of InfoComm, and I've got this slide here. What was exciting for you at InfoComm? What did you see there where you're just like, wow, that's amazing. This is exactly what the industry is needed, or this is exactly what organizations need. There's a gap filled here, and this is a great fit for it. What was exciting for you?
Yeah, I would say one, it was a great event. It was just great to. It felt kind of pre-pandemic level in terms of attendance, and I think that coupled with just this idea that I think we're appreciating being in person so much more than we did in the past. That there's just some magic at some of these events, and this was definitely one of them. But it was AI was a huge theme, and certainly from a Teams perspective, there's some things we could highlight. You mentioned Neat earlier, and they introduced some really cool products. They introduced a 50-inch board device along with a really unique stand that you can kind of height adjust it. Something that's super easy from a mobile perspective that you could imagine kind of moving around. And it either could be a standalone device, or they've got this new kind of app mode where you could have a traditional neat board, or you could have one of their bars deployed, and you also could have, let's say, this new 50-inch touchscreen device running a particular application, and you could share that application into the Teams meeting with just one button, or it could be multiple applications. So they have this now kind of app mode as well. So you could take one of their devices and either run it as a Teams room, or you could run it in a particular or multiple applications that you want to be able to share into Teams meetings from that dedicated kind of touch-enabled device. And so really exciting. They also were demonstrating their center of table and front of room camera technology, the center of table called Center, which was exciting to see. And so a lot of good stuff coming. Jabra is doing a lot. We talked about just that the Panicast camera and the example that we shared, but they have a device that is going to run. Today we use that camera as a USB accessory to a Teams room, and they have introduced a Android-based offering as well. So there will be a choice to do what we can do today with their devices, which is attach we use Windows-based base kit for a Windows Teams room, and we attach their camera as a USB peripheral. Additional, like near future, this additional option to leverage built-in Android compute in a touch panel for Jabra. They're also doing a whole bunch of fun development with Microsoft around IntelliFrame and this kind of next generation of experience where you're going to see more. You're going to see multiple streams coming out of the room and into different individual boxes inside of a remote meeting, individual participant boxes. So that was exciting to see. D10, who was a new entrant, recently finished their first certification with another touch display, was showing a 75-inch touch display, so a larger option at InfoComm. That was really exciting to see. Poly coming with some really exciting. They have a new middle kind of medium to kind of large medium room with this X52. So new camera with some really advanced AI in it as well. They also introduced a really exciting headset, this Voyager Surround 80, which is a nice headset. This is on the heels of some other pretty exciting. They introduced some true wireless earbuds recently called the Free 60, which are also really great products. Logitech, and I would say in general, there's this hot desking world is taking on a lot of focus, both in terms of the gear that we would place at a hot desk, as well as the process for how you would book a hot desk. And so you've got both Logitech and Crestron with some products specifically designed for hot desk booking. And in Logitech's case, it's also a full dock. So it's their LogiDock product, which they previously released. That's a cool product. It's a dock, but it also has a Teams button and an ability to have some controls and mute your camera and audio right from the dock. There's a version of this now with a screen on it that could be used for a hot desk. So if I reserve it, I see my name, I check in. Crestron has two products that they've introduced, specifically on the desk booking side, which is exciting. Crestron introduced some decked wireless, a USB decked wireless system, which is really exciting as well. So the idea that, let's say in a small training room where our furniture is modular, that we would have some mics that we could pick up off I think they're powered, but they're wireless. So we could take these things and just plug them into local power, but we don't have to worry about any of the cabling between them. They just need to be locally powered. That's super exciting. And then Crestron introduced a video bar that is running Android. So for them, their first Android-based device that has a whole bunch of cameras in it and can be used in a large room and has a whole bunch of input, output, and ability that you would expect from Crestron to go into some either simple or pretty complex environments. And lastly, QSC, I think I spelled the Seer Vision wrong. I think it's SEER, but QSC acquired a company that is in the AI camera computer vision space. And they were demonstrating some of what they're able to do with this new technology, which is multi-camera. Just picture, large boardroom where we want 4, 6, 8, 10 cameras, and the intelligence in that room to be able to figure out when a particular person is speaking. Camera zooms right in on them, and they're doing it in a pretty sophisticated way. And so they announced that acquisition, and they're going to be rolling that out over the next couple of months. And I think what it means is we're going to have some new and exciting options for boardrooms, specialty spaces, multi-purpose training rooms, to bring some of this AI experiences that we now see in kind of small and medium into some of those larger spaces, and that hasn't been historically that easy to do. So sorry, that was a
Wow, so
mouthful.
this
There
is
was a
just so
lot
I'm
more,
clear on
but
this
this
stuff.
is some of the highlights.
No,
Yeah.
no, that's okay. That was so exciting to listen to, because the takeaway from this, I mean, obviously there's a lot of new stuff out here, but this multi-frame or multi-stream out of a single room, so you've got different views and different. It's almost like when you do a professional, sort of call it that, like a professional podcast, right? Here we're on StreamYard. We just kind of do a little, one-on-one here, but how interesting is that? Is it's almost like when you get the different, almost like watching a TV show, when you've got a different angle from someone.
It's virtually directed multi-camera is kind of where it's, and so we've got intelligence sitting in the team's service. We've got intelligence sitting at the edge on the device level. And so, yeah, I think that it's exactly right. It's this idea that I didn't mention Hudley, who I should have, who also was showing a multi-camera virtually directed product called Hudley Crew, which was really exciting to see as well. So there's a lot of that happening. This idea that even if we're sitting in, it's a CEO town hall, and instead of just one camera pointing at me for 45 minutes as the CEO, just the idea that it shakes it up occasionally, gets me from a side shot, just the type of stuff that we would do if we were doing live production. We're seeing a lot of that come into this technology with multi-camera, this virtually AI kind of driven, virtually directed world that is, at the end of the day, just creating more engagement. And
That's
and
fantastic.
so and some of those spaces like boardroom have been really hard to do that in the past. CEO sitting at the far side of this, and we've got a camera, and they're just a speck in the distance, and it's been a terrible experience for folks outside of the room.
Man, Brandon, what do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, I'm like, this is cool stuff, and you can't see it. I don't know if you can see it. I've got a TV sitting over my shoulder on the wall, and I'm like, Rick, you and I, we've talked about, creating a at-home smart environment, because how often do I want to draw something? I'm like, it's not easy when you don't have something to touch with a stylus or a finger. I'm listening to all this going, I wonder how I can
get your hands on something.
Yeah, we should come back and we should go and do a session just on Microsoft Whiteboard, because we could do a whole hour just on Microsoft Whiteboard, which is quickly becoming kind of the collaborative glue that spanning everything, because you can do it on a mobile device, you can do it on a touch-enabled laptop. The rooms have the capability to interface with it. And it's a part of virtually every customer's kind of plan already, but it's one of these for whatever reason, I think there's folks who still don't appreciate just how far Whiteboard has come as a tool. Like, there's a lot of capability in it.
We're gonna have to do a whole show on that, because Whiteboard is like, I mean, you can't see this in my office, but I've got a whiteboard over here and a whiteboard over there. Like, I've got whiteboards everywhere. So we were just the other day, Brandon and I, this is what our discussion with Brandon was talking about. I was like, okay, we need a virtual whiteboard for both of us, just to collaborate on while we're both, on a video call and chatting through, or, in a meeting, chatting through, and then whiteboarding what our ideas are for our deployment, or for, new services, or whatever it may be. Right.
Yeah. And I've said this a ton, in at least the world I live in. I'm constantly on meetings, constantly, needing to share, whether it's screen share or whatever. And I, it's, for me, as I watch this tech come out, whether it's talking to you, Ryan, or we had Josh from Jabra on talking about their devices, talking about this stuff, it's making me realize that, there's even scenarios in my world where I work, I'm in a dedicated area for work, where it would be really nice to set up a Teams meeting type environment where maybe it's just a little puck on my desk and a multi-angle camera so that, and maybe a screen up on the wall so I can pivot from, maybe I'm sharing my screen to now I'm whiteboarding, but the camera follows me. There's, and the cost of it is down low enough now that makes it
is.
attainable.
We could get Surface Hub or D10 or Neatboard or Yealink Meeting Board or any of these technologies in as well. And you're starting to see there's some of these are starting to come in smaller form factors. But yeah, I think there's things you can do from. It also could be just another Surface laptop that's connected into the meeting that you're using specifically for whiteboard. So there's a lot of options these days. But yeah, whiteboard is kind of best kept secret, I think, and it's integrated right into Teams meetings, and it's integrated into the meeting room experience as well.
All right. Well, you're coming back, and we're going to have that discussion, Ryan, sometime soon. So real quick, Ryan, I do want you to go over what you guys offer. I know you went through it earlier, just on a kind of a high bullet point, but I want to put the slide up so people can understand if you're looking for meeting room equipment and things like that. If you want to walk through the offer here, that'd be great.
Yeah. So, I mean, in general, our world is, all about this collaboration devices and experiences, both personal device or shared space or the hot desking world. But in particular, I think on this DIY side, we have offers in these bundles. These DIY bundles are now available on unifiedcommunications.com. They include this kind of assistance when you need it from our team to help. They include line drawings and elevations and documentation. They include a pre-configuration service on the Windows products where we'll get it through a lot of its updates and send it so it doesn't require as much time for somebody in the room. It's not really necessary on the Android side. And then we include playbooks and documentation from both the specific hardware manufacturers and Microsoft, quick reference guide information to get started, and information on how to engage with that specific OEM and any guidance that OEM or device manufacturer has. So all that is included in addition to the hardware, and the cost of these kits is around the price of just buying the hardware on its own. So that's the idea. You essentially pay for the price of the hardware. We're going to help you get started with Teams rooms in something that you can either do on your own, or you can take some sort of low-cost physical installation vendor that could follow some instructions. They can do the physical side for you, and it will help you with the technical readiness and configuration.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. If you're an organization out there and you need to understand meeting room technology, you need to understand what it is you need for your organization and what's right for your organization. Ryan Herbst, unifiedcommunications.com. Please feel free to message us, and we'll share Ryan's contact information, and his team can help organize what some support for you guys for deploying services into your meeting room, Teams rooms. So last thing I'll say is, Brandon, I know we're at the top of the hour. We need to wrap up pretty quickly, but any final comments from you? Sorry, I wanted to give you an opportunity.
No, this has been informative, so much so that I think I'm going to get on and sign up for G12's Denver office location. And Ryan, I'll work with you to get our Denver office set up.
There we go. Yeah, we'd love to help. Yeah, so I think more info showing unifiedcommunications.com. If anybody listening wants to do a strategy session to talk about how to collaborate better, they can certainly reach out. We'll do that as a courtesy. And again, super passionate about this. And yeah, it was great, guys. We appreciate the invitation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's a wrap, everyone, for episode 23 of Everything Teams Phone Live, coming at you on LinkedIn. Thank you very much for attending. We will catch you guys later.
Thanks all.
All right.